Podcast, WATP.
This is a show that is hosted by Danny Jones, but who gives a shit about Danny Jones? Let's talk about the guest. The guest is Dr. Annon Hillman. He's a PhD in classics from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He's also known as Lady Babylon.
Lady Babylon 666.
Lady Babylon 666. This is an interesting character. Let me just read a little bit of the description from this podcast, this Danny Jones podcast. It says, his first book, The Chemical Muse, was published with St. Martin's Press immediately after his dissertation committee forced him to delete all the references to recreational drugs from his thesis. Dr. Hillman was recently investigated by the Vatican for demon possession and portal opening while teaching as a professor in classical languages. This guy knows ancient Greek better than the ancient Greeks knew it, according to him.
So he says.
Yes. He seems to have it all figured out.
He also, not on that little blurb, is the fact that he used to be a janitor, which I also learned during my research. So he's both been a professor and a janitor.
Oh, so it's like Good Will Hunting kind of shit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. Well, that's kind of neat.
How you like them apples?
Got to give it to him. So let's start off with this episode's like almost 4 hours long.
Yes.
There's a lot. In fact, Danny Jones comes on and goes, all right, guys, here's the deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this episode, so bear with us here.
If you're easily triggered.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy shit going on. A lot of fun stuff, too. I think we're going to have a good time with it today, but it does get pretty deep. Especially, he talks a lot about Jesus and what Jesus was up to. And so one of the first questions, he's really into the recreational drug use of the Romans in that time and the ancient Greek culture and even Jesus and the apostles, and everyone was just getting high and doing all sorts of crazy shit. So that's kind of what he's into. Listen, it's kind of like the Joe Rogan Experience. It's very similar to an episode of that.
It's similar. It's crazier.
In some cases, it gets a little crazier. That is certainly true. So the question comes up, who was Jesus? I think this is probably a good place for us to start with our clips to see how the guest addresses this.
And so who was Jesus Christ?
Yeah, Christ is a title.
Christ is a title.
Yeah, Christ is a title. Yeah, and it's a pharmaceutical term. It's the
Christ is a pharmaceutical term.
Where you put,
in Greek.
Yeah, yes, and it means I have several examples of it to show you, but it means you can perform an incrustation, they called it, where I give you a drug. What you'll see me do is I'll spit on the ground. Yeah, I'll spit on the ground and I'll use a combination of earth and spittle, my own spittle. Why am I spitting? Did you know Jesus walked up and spit in people's faces?
I thought you said Christ was just he was an actual person?
In the text. Who is he in the text?
Who is he? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's most important.
Okay.
And that text is going to show us history, right? You can say what you want about the text as long as we're translating it accurately.
So this is where I'm confused, because I watched a lot of this mumbo jumbo, really trying to understand what's going on.
Yep.
And he talks a lot about what Jesus did, what he was up to. And then he's like, yeah, but I thought you said Jesus wasn't a real person. No, but people wrote about him, which makes him real.
So I'm even more confused because if you want to hop over to my clip 4, I also learned what Christ means. But when he was defining it in this section of the interview, he says that it is applying a drug to your eye or something.
Yeah, this is weird.
What is the Christ?
What is the Antichrist?
What is the Christ? If you have to know the Antichrist, you have to know the Christ.
Right.
It's a Greek word.
For
applying a drug to your eyes so that they may be open.
That's what the Christ means in Greek.
Yes, it's from the verb chrio, to be stung by the gadfly.
Huh.
Who's the gadfly?
Who is the gadfly?
Yeah, I don't know. Socrates said he was. It's a thing they had going on. Remember, they have orgies and stuff like that, so you better buckle up, right?
There's a lot of censorship, so whenever they say orgies, that gets censored out. That just happened just now. But there's like a lot of weird words that you don't have to censor at all, but they do. which is a little frustrating, but we'll explain.
What I think that I got very confused by is confused is the wrong word. I am skeptical of Lady Babylon's ability to translate anything.
Interesting.
Completely.
Okay.
I don't
he does
think
have his PhD.
He
but
does.
Okay.
That doesn't mean anything.
I agree.
He claims that he can read another language. That does not make you a good translator. I'm pretty sure that he's just making shit up. It's like those little games where, you know, like you're like, okay, make this letter be this letter. I think he's just saying, okay, this word means this now.
Yes. And there's actually parts in this where they go back to the ancient texts and he's looking at the words and he's explaining what it means and then going through all this context. And it seems like he knows what he's talking about. I'll give him that. If this is all nonsense, he's doing a good job presenting it from time to time, because then he also goes off on these tangents that are so fucking frustrating. So, for example, we're talking about Jesus. Now, Jesus wasn't a real person, but a lot of people wrote about him. And so he reads the texts and he translates them correctly, unlike everyone else who translates them incorrectly. So he understands who Jesus was. Even if Jesus is just a concept, he understands it better than anyone else.
How did this get turned into the person everybody knows as Jesus Christ?
The fairy tale? For example, you can talk about the age of the apostles, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody gets in their mind the images of bearded adult men, right? People don't realize those are teenagers.
The apostles. We're talking about the picture of like Jesus with the apostles at the Last Supper.
Yeah, notice they're all bearded men.
They're all bearded men, yeah.
Yeah. What happened? Because the original description, he's constantly calling them children, and they aren't. Yeah,
in the original description, who's constantly calling?
Okay, James and John are two of Jesus's boys.
Yes.
He picked them up one day on a boat.
So I guess back then, boat means playground. He picked up these boys on a boat, and then they were hanging out with him. So I guess like he was pretty much Michael Jackson.
Sure.
Is how he's describing Jesus. And we get further into it from here. But it's very odd to me. Like I have not heard this before, that all the apostles were children that Jesus was hanging with. And it gets more nefarious than that. I'll just throw that out there. Yeah, a little bit. But before I get too deep, let's talk about how difficult it is to have a conversation with this guy.
Impossible.
It's almost impossible because he's almost trying to make it hard. Like he throws out words and ideas and concepts and changes the subject. You're like,
so the questions that came to my mind were, would you guys agree that he's intelligent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Skeptical.
I think that he is good at pretending that he is very intelligent.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know.
Yeah, I know. I'm skeptical too, but I get the sense that he is intelligent.
Do you think he wants to persuade people about his beliefs?
Yes, he has a whole YouTube channel.
Then why does he talk like a psychopath?
Right. That's what I was trying to figure out too. I'm like, simplify the message.
He's not that smart, apparently.
Right. I was thinking the same thing because I'm a fairly intelligent person, and there were times I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about?
His approach sucks.
His approach sucks, and I'm not the only one because I think Danny Jones comes off as a very intelligent person. He read his book. He seemed to know shit about the guy, but things like this happen all the time.
It's apparently the place from which they would pull all of this oracular information. They said it was the real, and we were the image of it. Go figure.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
I don't know either.
Why'd you bring it up? If no one knows what you're talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about either. Well, cool. Well, let's talk for the 3 hours.
I was just testing you.
Yeah, what the fuck is that all about? And here's just a quick example, and then we'll get back into the meat of things. Here's just a quick example of a fairly good question that he just goes off on some weird tangent on, and we never get back to it.
How close do you think AI is at translating Greek? And how accurate do you think it could possibly get?
I just had a conversation with Dr. Ruck about that, just a short one, and it's gonna happen. Yeah. Even if they feed it the lexicon, it depends on what they feed her. Right, like Mary nourished in the temple. Did you know Mary was being fed by angels?
No.
Yeah, she's got purple fingers in the apocryphal text. Yeah, she's got purple fingers. She's feeding from
So Mary was doing drugs.
From the angels. Yeah. That's when they auctioned her off at 12. A lot of this. Can we go here yet or no?
So
the question was, can AI translate ancient Greek text into English for us? And then Mary had purple fingers, and then what happened? Angels did what?
It's been a while since I've done acid, but that's what I sounded like pretty much.
Yeah, a lot of this sounds like a dorm room conversation with a guy who thinks he's way smarter.
There's candles.
than he is.
Yes. That's
what a lot of this is. So apparently, back in ancient times, there was this religious tradition where all the wives, one day a year, would go and bang the sailors that would come into town.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. You're excited about it.
I am.
Yeah. So he's talking about this tradition and talking about how if you didn't bang a sailor, you have to shave your head and stay with your man. Or you go bang a sailor and then go back to your husband after that. And the explanation for it was convoluted and ridiculous. But his whole thing is that he doesn't listen to what anyone else translates anything as. He doesn't want to hear anyone editorializing. Like, no, just show me the text. I'll read the text and I'll know what it is.
And then I'll tell you what it is. And then you have to believe me because I'm right.
And then he editorializes right here and he gets called on it, which is great.
Are the wives wanting to do this?
Yeah. Well, you'd have to ask them when they're doing it. But since they all come back with smiles.
It says that? They come back with smiles?
No, I made up they come back with smiles, but they do it every year.
Dum, 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 dum.
I like that. Good on Danny. I liked how Danny came across on this. I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular show. It seems very much like a Joe Rogan-esque kind of show.
Yeah, I think he did a pretty good job. But I do have a couple of things about Danny that I was not super pleased with. But before I move on to those things, if you'll peek over at my clip 14, because that's also about being married and different things that happen when you get married with women.
And that's how a group of these women function. That's how they hunted. They hunted men. You can imagine the society.
Of women that hunted men.
Yeah, you have to kill 3 men in order to get married.
Huh.
I've been married twice.
Yeah, and they don't really marry you. They just farm men.
Oh, Jesus, that's scary.
I was like, what is this? Where is the, like, that is a really weird translation.
How many women would get married if you had to kill 3 before you're able to get married?
Okay, so first you got to kill 3 men, then you're married, then you got to either bang sailors or shave your head.
Right.
That's a weird life for a woman.
It's a weird life, and I'm just saying that not many would accomplish those goals. Like the first guy they tried to kill, like, oh, I'll just kill you instead.
I think women are pretty bloodthirsty.
Really?
I think it'll be okay.
I mean, they love true crime, but they love talking about men committing all the heinous acts.
You know what is a good question, though? Why didn't they just kill the guy who was telling them that they had to kill 3 men?
That's what I would have done.
Yeah, that's the solution to the problem.
I would have called a meeting. Hey, guys, I got an idea. Come over here. Because it all seems
You guys
crazy.
are freaking me out. I'm calling the cops.
It all seems fucking crazy.
Let's plan this right now.
I got to say, Lucy, are we different people now that we've watched this episode?
I feel like a different
too.
I will say
this conversation is nuts. I would not have had this conversation yesterday at this time. There's no fucking way in hell.
insane.
Yeah.
I did see. So Lady Babylon actually has a pretty big following, and he gets a lot of views. Partially, I'm sure, because he's crazy. But
I mean, we only have a few fewer YouTube subscribers, but yeah, go ahead.
I mean, he's doing okay.
He's doing all right.
Doing okay. But I saw one of the comments on one of his videos was, I feel like I have evolved so much since I started listening to, and I was like, I definitely had a transformation. I don't know if it's good or if it's bad.
It's probably not great.
Is going on.
Yeah.
So before we go back into Lady Babylon, you want to hear a couple of my criticisms for Danny?
Please.
I agree. I think he did a really great job on this interview. I think he did fairly good at keeping on track with this nut job. But I would like it if he would maybe not interrupt quite so much in my clip 5, because I feel like we just need Lady Babylon to go on the stream of consciousness.
Okay.
And Babylon.
People who have early onset puberty.
I didn't think about it. Is Lady Babylon? He's spelling it wrong.
Ew.
He really does just babble out of that.
People who have early onset puberty.
Okay. Is there a problem with that?
Well, hell yeah, there's a problem with that.
What's the problem?
All that stuff is timed with growth. So if you're...
What causes it?
Peptides go astray in the brain.
But what makes the peptides go astray? Is there some sort of external influences?
So again, it's just a little bit, I just kind of want the stream of consciousness there. But
No, he's got to keep him.
He does.
I am
he
telling
has to
you,
keep him on track.
Yeah, if he doesn't keep him on track, this guy just goes off on anything he wants to talk about, and most of it's boring and nonsensical.
That is a good point. Another criticism, though, that I did have of Danny is something that I think you do really well. You know when to promote a sponsorship. You pause and, then you do it. It's great. I think that's a wonderful thing that you do.
Yeah, I always do it at the right appropriate time. SilkCityHotSauce.com.
Yes, exactly.
WATP for 15% off.
So in my clip 6, you will see that Danny is not so great at that.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Can
you explain what the magical papyri is for people who don't know? This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Mudwater.
Yeah.
What is the magical papyri?
That was jarring. I know. It's like there's so many other places you could put an ad read, but I guess maybe he wants to get that little tease out there, so you got to sit through the commercial break.
I'm not that interested.
If Lady Babylon did the ad reads, that'd be great.
Oh, that would be funny.
Just loved Mudwater.
Yeah.
His finger's purple.
Mudwater is purple. If you stir it fast enough, it's purple.
So Danny's whole team in my clip 7 does have some issues with professionalism.
Yeah.
Like real giants?
Gigantos. That's
Steve, are you crunching?
Oh, you can hear that?
Oh my God.
No, I liked it.
It's this is the ASMR podcast. There's stimulus everywhere.
That was his producer just eating snacks.
Yeah, Steve
Chris?
is his Jamie, who has to pull up all the clips. And hey, Steve, can you look this up for us? And every podcast, I guess, needs that now. Which, it's funny, I was on with Drew Lane yesterday, looking at The Fighter and the Kid, who are back from like a summer break thing. Ooh. And they have 2 producers who can't look up anything and don't know anything what they're talking about. Like, they'll bring up a story about the Olympics. They're like, oh, is that like a swimmer or a diver? I don't know. Did he win gold? I don't know. It's like, what are you...
Why did you bring it up?
Yeah, why do you hear that? What the fuck is the point of it? At least this guy actually knows how to Google, so I'll give that to him.
But what did the wife have to do in order to get married?
I don't know. All right. So, as I mentioned, there's all this censorship that goes on, and a lot of words are being censored out for YouTube. Words that aren't swear words, words that you can say, like orgy. I'm on YouTube right now, orgy. Okay. But,
we'll be right back, folks.
Yeah, but I think that actually this is a pretty good promotion that they're doing.
Please, Steve.
Yes. So for people who are listening to this podcast now, if it's on YouTube, it's going to be heavily censored because there's some words and there's some descriptions that Ammon is giving here that can't be shown on YouTube. So if you want to watch this thing fully uncensored, it's on our Patreon. It's linked below. Sorry to interrupt. Continue, please.
I got to start doing that. Guys, we're taking out all the jokes for the main feed. If you want to hear the show with the jokes in it, producer Chris, you will not hear for the rest of the episode. But on Patreon, you save it for Patreon. It's kind of an interesting way to go about that. Because the whole show is there. Right. But it's like, they're talking about orgies and all this crazy shit. I kind of want to hear that uncensored.
I want to hear the word erection.
Yeah, I know. They really do censor out erection and penis.
Oh, yeah.
It's weird.
A lot of erections were censored.
Let's talk about the first depiction of Jesus, going back to the olden days before Christianity, when the first person said, hey, that guy who was crucified over there, I think he was our savior. And this is what he looked like.
Can you expand on that? What was the first depiction of Jesus?
Him on a dude on a cross, very crude. Dude on a cross with the head of an ass.
With the head of a donkey.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't know Nicander?
No.
No, Nicander was a priest. 1st century BC. Late 2nd.
How would he know Nicander? If the guy was a priest in the 1st century BC. Did you know him? Didn't meet him, no. Knew of him, but didn't know
I've heard of him.
Yeah. Sorry, don't go that deep, I guess. All right, so the question comes up. Why was Jesus so great? I mean, you think about it. The first time this guy was depicted, he was a donkey-head guy on a cross. How great could he be? So Danny's just like, what the fuck? Why is everyone so excited about this dude if he really wasn't a great guy?
So let's give some context. Yeah. Let's give some context to this. So who was Jesus and why and what is so good? What is so great about him?
Yeah, Jesus is a guy who walked around with 12 children, and
all the time,
and
prostitutes.
No, I'm just telling you what the text say.
He was.
It's so weird that to censor out prostitutes.
None of the censor words make sense.
No, it's just to annoy us that we go to Patreon. I almost did, too. They almost got me. But I pushed through, guys. I persevered.
And a group of no, I'm just telling you what the text says.
He was just a guy who walked around with
prostitutes and children.
So what was so great about him?
He called his disciples and he calls them his children constantly, right? Remember, God.
So he's a pimp.
God blesses those who take care of the children.
They can say pimp.
Right?
Yeah, okay. Right.
Yeah.
He can say pimps and hoes, but he can say prostitute right. For some reason. Seems arbitrary to me. So then we get into Mark 14:51. I'm sure you have it memorized, Chris.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. So they're going to go into how it's been translated into different languages and what the actual original text said in Mark 14:51.
Yeah. A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus when they seized him. That's all it says.
Yeah. Now look at the Greek.
Oh, yeah.
And it says, a young boy was assigned to him, having wrapped his with a medicated bandage, and they arrested him.
A medicated bandage is what it says.
Sindon, yeah.
Now, we're talking about a young child. I don't know if the boner sound effect is appropriate there, producer Chris. I just wanted to point out. Yeah.
Much better.
So basically, what they're saying here, and they'll say it even more clear in a little bit, is that Jesus was a pedophile and was just fucking these boys.
I think that only... let's point out...
Have you guys heard this theory before? I didn't know this one.
No.
Okay.
I'm still reeling from MJ.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not very familiar with Christianity, so I just assumed that all of that was accurate.
Okay, yeah, me too. I assume that's probably right. He's the one reading the ancient text. I'm sure this all got fucked up in translation. They're like, well, let's make it look better with this. So
all of the other translators who all sort of agreed on what it said, they were the wrong ones.
Correct. So basically what we're finding out is that when Jesus was arrested and then he was later crucified, I think that day, speedy trials back then. Yeah. Got to give it to him for that. People just fucking sit around for months these days. But when he was arrested, he was caught in like a park with a young boy who just had like a thing wrapped around his penis or something like that, or
a medicated bandage.
A medicated bandage, which they do explain a little bit more. But the question is like, was that okay back then? Was that something that people were just like, yeah, that's fine. Jesus can hang out with young children in the park at 4 a.m.
Is there any sort of moral boundaries when it came to sex or prostitution based on
Not from what I've seen.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, generally, in different civilizations, you can still, like in Athens, you can still prosecute for somebody coercing what you and I would say is underage, them before puberty. Yeah, that's still, you can get in trouble for that.
Okay.
But it's not like it's not like there's compensation involved because, it's not like a crime like you and I consider a crime. It's more like a civil crime. Yeah.
Okay. Like being punched.
Right.
Yeah, you've damaged somebody, so you can give them reparations for damaging them.
Okay.
Like you've punched a young boy with your penis in his butt. Yeah. You punched me really hard with your penis, sir. Over and over again. My mom's going to be very upset with you. We're going to demand some payment for this. So, apparently, it was frowned upon to have sex with prepubescent boys and girls in those times, to some degree. But then they talk about this medicated linen that we heard about before. So this boy only had this linen on, and it was medicated, and they explain what that means.
And here it is. And notice that it's using soldiers. It's using terms for soldiers and slaves, right? So this kid is not just hanging out with Jesus, right? People have tried to explain this for a while. What was the kid doing with Jesus, right? Okay. Anyway, let's go on to the next one.
Double click. There you go. Now hit the green button.
Blow it up. Look, this is what the kid is wrapped on his gumnos. And you say, what's gumnos? Gumnos
fine
is
cloth, usually linen.
Yeah. Fine cloth. Look Look where look at the second line. It says bucines telemones, right? So they're wrapping things in this
used
fine
for mummies.
cloth, right?
And surgeons' bandages.
And bandages, and that's where I get it. On my end, when I'm reading the medical authors, they're all saying that you impregnate linen with drugs that you're going to treat the wound with, right? This kind of makes sense.
You impregnate women.
No, linen, I'm sorry.
You impregnate linen.
Don't impregnate the women.
With drugs.
Yeah.
To treat wounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that makes sense.
So this little kid had linen on for wounds. Makes me think that maybe he had a...
Can I get a little sympathy? Because I got a bloody ass. I'm bleeding generously. Because I got a bloody ass.
I don't know. I'm not a scholar when it comes to the Bible. I could be wrong about that.
You're also not a doctor.
Correct. I'm not a doctor or a biblical scholar. All right. What else did you pick up on from our friend Lady Babylon here?
Oh man, I did learn that he does have one line. So I mean, he says some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But in my clip 12, I do learn that Lady Babylon he just thinks that aliens are too wacky.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about all these people talking about Anunnaki aliens flying around and building pyramids back in the day?
I think it's silly.
You do? Damn it!
That is just, I don't know. I cannot imagine saying all of the other stuff that he says and then being like, aliens. Those are silly.
Yeah, that's silly talk.
That's too much. But I also found that he really cared for people. So Lady Babylon in my clip too, he was the man for the people and he really cared about saving our souls.
Right.
But I was the one who was saving souls. That was my thing. It's delicious. Have you never saved a soul?
Probably not, no.
No? Mm-mm. Oh, you should try it.
Well, I'll have to learn.
It's yummy.
I couldn't sit with this guy for 4 hours.
No.
It's very
Stamina.
impressive.
And at first, it didn't look like they were in the same studio together.
Right.
And they are.
They are.
Yeah,
They
across
definitely
each
are.
other for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a little shocking.
Well, it's interesting because Danny did a good job of doing his research on Lady Babylon, but not vice versa, as you'll see in this example.
Right, and if you don't understand that, it's because you're not a...
No, I understand. I can understand it. I can.
You did Buddhism stuff, didn't you? You probably... I don't have any of that, but isn't that an Eastern thing as well?
I didn't do any Buddhism stuff.
You didn't?
No.
No.
What gave you that idea?
I don't know. It's previous misconception.
That was a fun little part of this. Hell, you're a Buddhist. You don't get it. What the fuck are you talking about? What part of me makes it look like I'm a Buddhist? It's so weird. All right. So you want to get into the drug stuff? Because this is really what he's all about. Okay. He's really into the fact that everyone was on drugs back in this time, back in biblical times. And he is the one who's uncovered this. And the powers that be will not allow him to post this anywhere. They're censoring him. They're not allowing him to put it. His publisher didn't allow him to put it in the book. When he got his PhD, they had a problem with that part of it when he was presenting. And so he's going to explain what it was like back in the ancient Roman times.
Do you know what Baptists carry? They carry...
Drugs.
Yeah, they carry drugs. Everybody's carrying drugs. Mm-hmm. And by the way, in the Roman market is an open market.
The Roman market is an open market.
Yeah, you can buy anything. You can buy venom from North Africa in the Roman market, make a concoction, it'll knock you down. And we know this because they have recipes and doctors writing about what do you do when you come across somebody and he's had too much hemlock. The first time I read that, I was like, wait a minute, too much hemlock? That's what Socrates was killed with, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this is a dude who
They
just...
use small amounts to trip balls?
He said he'll be walking on all fours and bleeding like a sheep.
Sign me up.
God.
Yeah, and what do? You got to give him an antidote. And that's where I was talking before about the rope that's in the cave, that's guiding us through the cave, is the science. They have come through, the Romans have come through a world that was the Bronze Age renaissance of drugs, dotes and antidotes, they call it, Christs and antichrists.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. They are pharmacological
That's what I would say.
terms.
No, that really is like the big aha moment, is that Christ means drugs.
Yes.
And Antichrist, because this guy is a Satanist, right?
Yes.
And that's why, because that's the antidote for Christ, which is actually drugs. But he likes drugs. But he also, you need the antidote, because back then drugs were like snake venom, which, listen, I don't do meth. I don't do snake venom. There are certain things that scare me enough that I'm like, nah, I'm good.
And you don't think that the aliens are real?
I do.
Oh, okay, damn it.
Sorry, I'm not with you on that.
We study Tommy, so.
Yeah. I know all about aliens. I try to figure out what they're going to say every week. All right. Well, then they talk about how being on drugs is the best thing for leaders, which I don't know that I agree with this, but then I was like, well, maybe I do.
I mean, even like if you talk, like if you wanted the best, most just and fair, uncorrupted version of government today, you would want the president of the United States to be tripping on mushrooms, right?
Yeah. And then I was thinking, like, Kamala on mushrooms. Oh, no, I can't fucking... That would be the worst. I don't know what kind of music we'd hear, but it wouldn't be anything I'd want to hear. It'd be brutal. She's already annoying as it is. Like when you're with that person who's annoying and then they get amped up by mushrooms, you're like, oh, God, okay. I'm in for it for like 6 hours. This sucks. So let's get back to Jesus. Unless you have anything on drugs that you want to talk about, Lucy.
No good drug stuff.
Okay, let's get back to Jesus. Let's get back to what Jesus was up to.
Remember, what does Jesus do with his boys? We all know this. That's why we're a crowd, and we're angry, and we want Jesus crucified. Now you understand why there was a friggin' crowd there. Yeah. A little bit brutal with them, weren't they? Well, yeah, they had good reason to be. He was with those 12 underage kids in that room, washing feet. And you gotta get it when you wash feet. Have you ever washed somebody's feet?
Not that I can recall.
How about a 12-year-old boy?
No, absolutely not.
Now, why wouldn't you? Do you have some kind of problem with Jesus?
It is a little creepy when he puts it that way. And no wonder the town all showed up to throw rocks at this guy. And they're like, oh, you fucking creep. Get out of here. Why are you doing that? So
I think you believe in Lady Babylon.
I am. I'm on board with this. So basically what he explains, and I just believe the last thing I heard. That's my policy in life. So
well, he says so many things. That's
this is
your
my
only choice.
This is what I do take on things. So basically what happened was, Last Supper, Jesus was naked the entire time. I think he was on snake venom and freaking out.
This is the Lady Babylon version of the story.
The real one.
The real version.
Right.
Okay,
Correct.
got it. Okay.
All right. So throw your Bibles out, everyone. Let me explain to you what's going on here. The Last Supper, it's Jesus with a bunch of underage boys. He's naked. He's high on snake venom. He's going nuts. And then he decides he needs to get the antidote. And the antidote, you can't believe this. Apparently, prepubescent boys, you can make... I'm going to get a shut off. You can make them ejaculate stuff, I guess, is what they're saying. This is all censored. There's a lot of censorship going on. But I was able to figure out what they were talking about here. This is nuts.
With the 3 older ones, and he says, keep guard while he takes the young kid off to the middle of the garden. In the meantime, they're falling asleep while Jesus is rolling around in agony and doing what he's got to do to get for the Galene from the boy. Mm-hmm. And that's the mastery here. The boy has some kind of antidote. Mm-hmm. Galen describes Yeah, it's not...
I think he just said prepubescent ejaculate, right?
Yeah, I would agree that.
But it's got the word pube in it, so you can't say
it.
Yeah, it's not milky.
Galen describes this.
Yeah, as long with the girls exudate from their breast.
They don't have breasts.
Milk. You didn't know you could?
I did not know that.
Okay, well, you can, medically.
I didn't know that either.
Medically.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right at all.
I don't believe any of those words.
Yeah, that seems
Of course you don't know that. I just made that word up.
It seems off to me. But apparently what was happening was Last Supper, naked orgy. Jesus ODs on snake venom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has to
Classic Jesus.
has to jerk off this boy in the park.
Again.
Cops catch him.
Yeah.
Take him to the courts They crucify him, and he didn't die on the cross from the crucifixion. Yeah. He OD'd on snake venom, according to this guy. That's how he actually died. And so, listen.
It really ruins a crucifixion.
It does, yeah. Like all the churches now, and I'm watching, I'm just like, oh, that guy's just high on snake venom.
He's already dead.
Yeah, right. Like, what are we doing here? But, let's find out what's really going on. Here's the truth, everyone.
So I'm not saying to anybody's interpretation. There's no room for interpretation here. It's just what do the sources say? He's a lay stace,
which is a pimp,
which is basically a trafficker.
It is such a child. It's a child trafficker. Whoa! Don't say child. Don't say child. Why? It's so weird.
Trafficker. Yeah.
Which was looked down upon, which was frowned upon back then.
Because it's an active, organized crime.
So, sex trafficking children was frowned upon in these times? Yes. Yes, it was. Okay. Just making sure. I wasn't sure how that worked. So, guys, I learned a lot from this. What else did you pick up on?
Oh, my goodness.
Lucy? What a ride, huh?
I found out Lady Babylon, he was studying the brain in my clip 9.
Yeah.
And so this is just them talking about why he's studying the brain. And I feel like his views are going to give me a little bit of an idea of where he's coming from.
Yeah, we used to drill holes in animals' heads and then put in a little catheter, a little tube. And then you can insert a substance, anything you want. Anything. You could insert orange juice if you wanted.
I don't understand how he thinks that talking about lobotomizing Scruffy makes him sound more like a knowledgeable guy and less like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Especially when he says orange juice.
Yeah.
What is that good for? Yeah. Well, it needs vitamin C. What?
It's
hydration.
It's not really inspiring me to think that he has any interest in how the frontal lobe develops.
Yeah.
And that for me is one of those clips that that's when I just completely lose him.
You think he loses credibility with that one?
Just a tiny
Not
bit.
Jesus was a child trafficking pedophile?
I don't know enough about Jesus.
All right, fair enough.
I do know that lobotomizing animals and putting orange juice in their brain is closer to Jeffrey Dahmer than research on brains.
Right. I wouldn't call it a scientific experiment.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I would call him a crazy
What would happen if we drilled a hole in this animal's head and poured orange juice in it? It died. Didn't expect that. Let's try it again.
Tropicana?
Yeah, we're going to need a larger sample size now to make sure that happens every time. All right, what else, Lucy?
I don't have a lot of. He's just in. Do
you want to play his clip from his channel?
Oh yeah, let's do that. So I went and checked out his channel, and I tried real hard to watch any of his videos.
Me too. I wanted to find clips of him saying crazy shit, and it's just so much nonsense.
It's so much nonsense. He does so much of the translation on his YouTube channel. So a lot of it is just him pulling up words and then describing what he believes that the words mean, which again, I think is all malarkey. So I went to a random spot in one of his episodes, and this, my clip 15, is what we found.
I'm going to reach into the Bible. I'm going to reach into the Bible, and I'm going to pull out the queen, the all-queen, right out of the guts of Paul the Apostle. Where's my whip? Where's the crop?
You know what? I have to say this right now, especially for the people who are listening to the podcast. You're right. He's an idiot. No genius would have a kitchen like that.
Yeah.
That is so dated. That looks like King Cobra JFS's kitchen. That's not a nice place.
Not only that, but he streams everything in his kitchen.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that Danny Jones episode is the only thing he ever did not in his kitchen. And he has this shrine that includes his riding crop, which he, as you just heard, is about to grab. And again, for the people who are only listening, he's about to use it to thwack the floor a whole bunch.
All right.
He's a mental patient.
There's the crop here. Getting old. Paul the Apostle. This one's for Paul. He's a snake pusher, right? He's a venom junkie. So, you got to herd him in different ways. Come here, Paul. You know what I'm going to do?
Paul's on the ground, apparently.
He's only 12.
I want you to disgorge
the Jerry Banfield of the Bible.
lovely song of Medea. Can you do that, Paul? Can you do that? I know you're so bent on your Christos. I know you are, Paul. But I want you to disgorge the contents of your guts. And I want it to
Lucy,
be
I heard he's single.
Medea. This man is crazy, mommy. Pass me the chicken nuggets, Tommy.
No sauce.
I'm getting married again, and he's the first guy I'm killing.
Yeah, all right, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we can take him seriously now that I think about it. You might be onto something.
I think that Danny Jones's interview, I think it was thoughtful. I think that he asked good questions, and I think that it was more comprehensible than anything that Lady Babylon has ever done in the past.
Which is why I appreciate Reverend Shitstain or whoever asked us to do this show for promoting that first. If you just would have sent me these videos, I'd be like, yeah, I can't follow. There's a lot of schizos on the internet. I don't know. But yeah, when he actually sits down with a guy who has a big audience and he tries to keep him on track and to explain this stuff. But it was interesting that an hour and a half in, and I played the clip where he just starts, he's like, well, are we ready to get into this now? Or maybe it was 2 hours in. Are you ready to get into this now? Because like, I'm going to say some crazy shit about Jesus. Just like, yeah, might as well. Let's go. It's like
as if nothing crazy had been said before.
No, it's all crazy, but like, I don't know, why bury the lead? You know, if you ever watch how YouTube videos are enjoyed and viewed, it's just, it goes down.
Yeah, until they finally realize the show should have ended an hour before.
Yeah.
It's like, no, get right to the guy you worship is a pedophile stuff. That's the fun stuff that we all are interested in.
Who are these podcasts? WA